When I was 13 or 14 years old, I shared a bedroom with my sister, and there was a mirror on the wall across from my bed. I woke up to a very bright light one night, as if someone was shining a flashlight in my face. When I opened my eyes, I saw an old man in a hospital gown with a really, really long beard in front of the mirror. It was the old man that was shining so brightly. He was putting on a feather necklace and saw me looking in the mirror. I was so terrified that when he turned to look at me, I froze. I couldn't call out to anyone because my voice wouldn't come out, and I couldn't even move. I closed my eyes and didn't open them again until it was time to get up. I went to school looking like a mess because I went days without looking in the mirror. I never stayed alone in my bedroom again or in any place with mirrors. To this day, there's no mirrors in my bedroom. I once spent a weekend at my grandfather's house when I was 8. I was laying on the sofa and went out like a light. When I woke up again, it was already night, and I saw this black silhouette of a man sitting on the sofa near my feet, looking right at me. I couldn't see his face, not even a trace of his features, just a silhouette of a burly, bald man. I screamed for my mom, and she came into the room and was asking what was going on. I told her, but she didn't take it seriously, thinking I had just had a bad dream, that the whole thing was fake. But I know what I saw, and it was real. When I was a teenager, I had some friends over at my place for the sleepover. That night, it was early hours of the morning, and I woke up to the sound of someone calling my name. When I opened my eyes, I saw a headless man right in front of the group of us. He was wearing slacks and brown shoes. I screamed so loud that it woke up my parents and the other girls. The next day, nobody but me remembered what happened last night. I still remember to this day, and I'm almost 30 now. I'm waiting for it to come back. When I was a child, I walked into my bedroom and saw what looked like to be a Japanese girl in black tights and orange stripes. She was stopped in front of the mirror, looking sideways at me. When I looked again, the girl had disappeared, and I ran from the room, making my mother come back with me. Years later, she confessed to me that she had been frightened that day because before I was born, she was given black tights in that bedroom. The black and orange uniform had belonged to a girl that had been a student of hers who had passed away. One night, I suddenly woke up and saw an apparition, or who knows what, that looked just like a Dementor from Harry Potter staring at me. We remained there, eyeing each other for a while. Then the being's arm reached out and began squeezing my wrist. I felt a lot of pain and was desperate to get away, but couldn't. The only thing I could do was close my eyes. One evening I was alone in my bedroom doing homework. Suddenly I hear footsteps coming from downstairs, so I got up to go check it out. Before I started down the steps, I heard the sound of bottles breaking in my father's bar downstairs, which went on for a little while. I made my way downstairs, but when I reached the landing, I could see broken bottles and glasses all over the floor, and I could hear people screaming in the house, even though I was the only person home. I locked myself in my room and stayed there until my parents got home. And guess what? There wasn't one single broken bottle or glass or anyone except for me in the house. A former teacher of mine had actually told me this story. When she was about 15 years old, she used to go exploring at a waterfall with her friends. It was a Sunday and they had decided to go to the waterfall that was close to a little farm. They were all walking down the road when a long line of people appeared in front of them, walking away from the farm towards the city. As they approached, they realized that there was a funeral service attending. They passed through the procession and could see that it was only made up of men dressed in all black. They had all their heads lowered in such a way that it wasn't even possible to see their faces. When the group of friends turned to watch the procession, it had vanished, and no one ever saw it again. My paternal grandfather passed away, and after the funeral, our entire family returned to the little farm he and my grandmother lived at because we didn't want her to be alone. My grandfather was an extremely irritable old fellow who went around gambling about pretty much anything, including any loud sound or voice or laughter. My aunt and cousins and I were sitting outside, trying to dissipate the air of sadness. After an exhausting day, we were all ready to laugh a little, but soon after we did, we heard shuffling of footsteps from inside the house, and a grumbling voice say, "Shove that the hell up your ass." Exactly how my grandfather did when he was alive. We all froze. It was as if he was actually here. A short time later, my grandmother ended up moving away from the farm because she kept on hearing it. I sat on the bus on my way to school, listening to music and paying little to no attention to the other students. At one of the stops, my mind snapped back to reality. I looked towards the small house, Tommy's house, I thought. A hand slipped through the drapes of the window and waved the bus driver to move on. He's sick, I thought, paying no large amount of attention to the situation. The day flew by, and I watched the local news channel after school, and what I heard paralyzed me. Tommy's entire family had been murdered that day by an unknown suspect. After hearing this news, I moved back up to my room and quietly fell asleep. The next day, I sat on the bus. We drove past Tommy's house, and the bus driver, unaware of Tommy's family's fate, stopped at the house. As I was about to get up and explain to her what had happened, something caught my eye. A pale hand slipped through the drapes of the window and waved for the bus driver to move on. I sat on the bus, terrified. We bought an old house, my boyfriend and I. He's in charge of the new construction, converting the kitchen into a master bedroom, for instance, while I'm on wallpaper removal duty. The previous owner papered every wall and ceiling. Removing it is brutal and oddly satisfying. The best feeling is getting a long peel, similar to your skin when you're peeling from a sunburn. I don't know about you, but I kind of make a game of peeling. Under a corner section of paper in every room is a person's name and date. Curiosity got the best of me that night when I Googled one of the names and discovered the person had actually been a missing person. The missing date matching the date under the wallpaper. The next day, I made a list of all the names and dates. Sure enough, each name was the name of a missing person with the dates to match. We notified the police, who naturally sent out a crime scene team. I overheard one of the texts say, "Yup, it's human." Human? What's human? Ma'am, where's the material you removed from the walls already? This isn't wallpaper you are removing. When my sister Betsy and I were kids, our family lived a while in a charming old farmhouse. We loved exploring its dusty corners and climbing the apple trees in the backyard. But our favorite thing was the ghost. We called her Mother because she seemed so kind and nurturing. Some mornings Betsy and I would wake up, and on each side of our nightstands, we'd find a cup that hadn't been there the night before. Mother had left them there, worried that we'd get thirsty during the night. She just wanted to take care of us. Among the house's original furnishings was an antique wooden chair, which we kept against the back wall of the living room. Whenever we were preoccupied, watching TV or playing a game, Mother would inch the chair forward, across the room, towards us. Sometimes she'd manage to move it all the way to the center of the room, We always felt sad putting it back against the wall. Mother just wanted to be near us. Years later, long after we'd moved out, I found an old news article about the farmhouse's original occupant, a widow. She'd murdered her 2 children by giving them each cups of poisoned milk before bed. Then she'd hang herself. The article included a photo of the farmhouse living room, with the woman's body hanging from a beam. Beneath her, knocked over, was that old wooden chair, placed exactly in the center of the room. It was 1 a.m., and Guy Halverson sat in his dark living room. He hadn't moved for over an hour. The accident earlier that evening kept playing over in his mind over and over again. The light turned red, but he was in a hurry and accelerated. An orange blur came from his right, and in a split second, there was a violent jolt. Then the bicyclist rolled across his hood and fell out of sight on the pavement. Horns blared angrily, and he panicked, stepping on the gas, screeching away from the chaos into the darkness, shaken and keeping an eye on his rearview mirror until he got home. Why did you run, idiot? He'd never committed any crime before this, and punished himself by imagining years in jail. His career was gone, his family was gone, his future was gone. Why not just go to the police right now? You can't afford a lawyer. Then someone tapped on the front door, and his world suddenly crumbled away beneath him. They found me. There was nothing he could do but answer it. Running would only make the matters worse. His body trembling, he got up, went to the door and opened it. A police officer stood under the porch light. "Mr. Halverson?" asked the grim officer. He let out a sigh. "Yes, let me. I am terribly sorry, but I am afraid that I have some bad news for you. Your son's bike was struck by a hit-and-run driver this evening. He died at the scene. I'm very sorry for your loss." I don't know why I looked up, but when I did, I saw him there. He stood against my window, his forehead rested against the glass, and his eyes were still and light, and he smiled a lipstick red, cartoonish grin. He just stood there in the window. My wife was upstairs sleeping. My son was in his crib, and I couldn't move. I froze and watched him looking past me through the glass. Oh, please, no. His smile never moved, but he put his hand up and slid it down the glass, watching me, with matted hair and yellow skin and face, looking through the window. I couldn't do anything. I just stayed there, frozen, feet still in the bushes. I was pruning, looking into my own home. He stood against the window, watching me. Last night, a friend rushed me out of the house to catch an opening act at a local bar's music night. After a few drinks, I realized my phone wasn't in my pocket. I checked the table we were sitting at, the bar, the bathroom, and just no luck. So I used my friend's phone to call mine. After 2 rings, someone answered, gave out a little raspy giggle, and hung up. They didn't answer again. I eventually gave it up as a lost cause and headed home. I found my phone laying on my nightstand right where I left it. My daughter woke me up around 11:50 last night. My wife and I picked her up from her friend Sally's birthday party, brought her home, and put her in her bed. My wife went into the bedroom to read while I fell asleep watching the Braves game. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging on my sleeve. "Guess how old I'm gonna be next month?" "I don't know, Beauty," I said as I slipped on my glasses. "How old?" She smiled and held up 4 fingers. It is 7:30 now. My wife and I have been up with her for almost 8 hours. She still refuses to tell me where she got them. My dog has a nasty habit of scratching the door in the middle of the night. One evening, she wouldn't stop scratching at the door for any reason. After calling her 5 times, I threw a pillow towards the door to make her stop. That's when she barked, from right beside me. She'd been next to me the entire time. When I was little, every night when the lights would turn off and I went to sleep, 2 dark forms would descend from the ceiling near the doorway in my room. They walked quietly up to my bed and stood on each side of the headboard, looking at me. I would cover my head with my blanket, until one day I had the courage to tell my mother. She put a lamp in my room and told me to pray and ask them to leave. I sleep with the lamp on every night, because they never did. One day during a break in class, a friend of mine put his head down and took a quick nap. I took this photo to show some friends who were in another classroom. When I took this photo, nobody in the room was standing. There was nobody behind me who could have cast a shadow, and there was nobody walking by in the classroom. My father died in 1996, when I was only 10 years old and my brother was 12. We slept in a bunk bed, and my brother was on the upper bunk while I had the lower one. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night with someone softly caressing my head. I thought it was my brother and ignored it. When I went back to sleep, the feeling returned. I got out of my bed to comfort my brother, but he was snoring quietly. I went back to bed and the caressing began a 3rd time. I've never prayed so hard in my life. I prayed until the sunrise the next morning, but he still comes and caresses me. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, my mother worked nights and we shared a double bed. One day, I felt a strange presence in the bedroom. I had my eyes closed, and when I opened them, I saw hands wrapped around the bed from underneath. The hands were made of blood, bone, and hanging skin, and they tried to climb onto the bed. I turned away and there was a light, white shadow lying next to me. I managed after a long time to get up and run to my grandmother's room. She didn't dare come back into the bedroom with me. My grandmother lived with my family during the last few months of her life. She died on the sofa in our house one Saturday night. The following week, I started to see someone in white passing through the house occasionally. And when I went to look for them, there was never anyone there. My sister claimed that she also actually saw physical forms. We were terrified for a good while, until my sister and I could no longer sleep in our beds because we were just too afraid. My mother prayed, burned the couch in the backyard, and we never saw anything again. At least I hope it stays that way. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I woke up to a noise in my room. When I opened my eyes, there was a man standing in front of me, with a big brown beard, dark hair, and black clothes. I kept looking at him in fear and backed away on my bed until I was against the wall. Then I felt the mattress sink down beside me, and I started to cry. When I looked again, he had vanished, but it still seems as if there were someone lying next to me on my bed. I asked it to leave because I was afraid. and the bed returned to normal. I cried myself to sleep, and I still remember the man's face to this day. I'd never met anyone who looked like that, and neither had my parents. When I was about 15 years old, I stayed up late watching a TV marathon with my sister. In the middle of the night, after my sister had fallen asleep, I saw the nearby computer mouse start moving by itself. I called my mother into the room and said it was probably just a rat that was playing on the cable underneath the desk, and that I should just go to sleep. Suddenly, I swear I saw a black figure with no face or human features behind the bookcase. It looked in my direction and pointed. I nearly shit myself with fear. I remember saying, "Who are you? I do not want you in my house. Nobody wants you here. Get out, now." The thing left, and I actually heard it hit the cabinet before it just went through it. The cabinet began to sway, and the door slammed closed with a loud bang. That was the last time I saw it. 4 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a woman in a black dress standing beside my bed. When I sat up, she started to accuse me of having done things that I hadn't done, saying I had apparently stolen someone from her. I don't know what was going through my head to argue with a ghost, but eventually I decided to ignore her and go back to sleep. She then pulled me out of bed while attacking my body. She suddenly disappeared, and I was just so afraid that I couldn't even go back to sleep. The whole thing felt so real that I was actually sore the next day, especially around my ankles where she had grabbed me while pulling me from my bed. I was once playing with a Ouija board in my room with a friend. We tried to light some candles, and, crazy as it sounds, they just wouldn't light, no matter how long I held that match to them. After a little while, I managed to light them, and we turned off the lights and closed the windows. Out of nowhere, my friend's mother called her asking if she was okay and if everything was okay. Apparently, she felt a feeling of worry out of nowhere. After my friend calmed her mother down, we started to use the Ouija board, but nothing happened, other than the candle's flames moving kind of strangely. Later in the evening, after my friend and I had already gone home, I felt a sensation of being watched. I ignored it and went to sleep, but had nightmares about being chased by a scary beast with enormous claws, and when I managed to wake up, I saw that my legs were all scratched up. I couldn't sleep anymore, so I threw the Ouija board in the trash and slept cuddled next to my mother for 2 weeks. Hello everyone. I wanted to go over a few things before this video ended. First off, I wanted to apologize for being gone. After doing that last video, it was kind of draining and I just needed a little bit of time, and I needed to go ahead and get a hold of some new stories. I decided to do this type of story so then we could start having longer stories on this channel. I've been wanting to really push for that because I want to provide more than just 10 to 15 minutes maybe, and a lot of people want longer videos. On top of that, I really hope you enjoyed this type of video. If you do like these types of videos, make sure to let me know in the comment section because I do read all of the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, I would really like to have you part of our community. We're doing nothing but growing and expanding, and we're going to take over the world one day. If it was that easy. But there are a few future collabs that are happening within the next couple of weeks that I am part of. I will be posting those in the community chat. But with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out the links in the description. Twitter, Instagram, everything's in there. If you want to get up to date, or if you just want to see what I'm up to, that's the best way to do it. I'm usually active on all of them. But stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one. We're taking over the world.